Welcome to the Rise to Shine podcast with Noelle Custis, where we ignite the spark to discover your favorite self. It is time to get real, ladies. Hello. Welcome to the Rise to Shine podcast. I'm your host, Noelle Custis. And on today's episode, I am joined by the incredible Nicole Porter. I would love to introduce her as a fearless dream chaser and personal development enthusiast with a story that I truly believe is going to leave you inspired. I met her about a year ago, and I truly was so inspired by her story then. And so much has happened since then. So, extremely excited to be introducing her today. I will say that Nicole has made some very bold decisions. I'm going to let her tell her story, but as part of the intro today, I will say that you are in for something very special. This is going to be an intimate conversation, one that I love doing because I feel like, with the podcast, oftentimes, we hear business stories and we hear different things, but when it really gets personal and you can relate to it and just have some aha moments, I feel like that is the beauty of women telling their story. So, in this episode, we're going to dive into her transformational journey, the challenges that she overcame, and the lessons that she learned about I know in this story there's bravery, there's a whole heck of a lot of purpose, and there is really this whole idea, which is, my heart designing a life that you truly love. So, if you've ever felt held back by fear or wondered what it takes to start over and chase your dreams, this conversation is going to be for you. So, I cannot wait. I am so excited, and welcome, Nicole. We're so happy you're here.
Thank you, Noelle. I'm so excited to be here.
Nicole, tell us a little bit about yourself and who you are.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm sure you haven't even heard all the stories. Yeah, I grew up in Michigan and I have lived in Arizona going on 18 years now. And when I was in Michigan, I grew up in a really small town, about 100 miles out of Chicago, straight across the lake from Chicago. And I just felt like I just can't be destined for this small town. And it's funny because my mom used to tell me, she's like, you've wanted to move out of the house since you were 12. So when I had the opportunity to leave, I took it. I went away to Michigan State University, which was about 2 hours from my house. I'm like, it's just far enough that I can go home, but it's far enough away that nobody's going to just show up. I'm like, I want a new life. And I had to get out of the small
Mm-hmm.
town. And that was the first big leap that I took and went to Michigan State. I went to, I ended up in
Okay.
Detroit area. Another start over story. I took a semester off school for Michigan State because I was just like, I was a packaging engineer major, and the thought of being an engineer and sitting in an office in a drafting room all day just really bored me. And I was like, is this really what I want to do? Like, do I want to spend more time in this? And I took a semester off school, and that's when I visited Arizona for the first time. It was 2000. I came out here with my grandma. She used to come out every year. We had some cousins in Mesa, and my mom's like, "You're not doing anything. Why don't you go with your grandma to Arizona?" I was like, "Oh, perfect." And it was February, mind you. So Michigan February is like one of the worst months ever. So I came out with my grandma and I fell in love with Arizona. It was 60 degrees and sunny every day. And I was like, okay, this is where I belong. But I was not finished with school yet. So I went back to Michigan, and my mom's like, just finish school. You can do whatever you want, but please just finish school first. And I said, okay. I ended up moving in with my best friend over in the Detroit area. And that's when I was like, okay, I just need to get done with school. And I went to Oakland University and I graduated from Oakland University. I became a restaurant manager after that because I waited tables all through college and now I need work experience. And so I took the first opportunity that I could and managing a sports bar in the Detroit area. So it was fun. It was a great time. um, but it was ultimately, again, I was going to sporting events, drinking, partying, doing all the things, working, 12-hour plus days. And I was like, I have a college degree. Like, this is not what I'm destined for. And I started to get that like yearning of like doing something different again. And my best friend and I, we were going to move to Austin, and then we were going to move to Florida, and just things just did not work out. And finally, when the economy changed in 2007, I was like, okay, enough's enough. Nobody's going with me. I know some people in Arizona. If I have to call anybody, like I have a couple friends from college there, like it'll be okay. And so I asked my boss for, a raise or a new position. I was like, look, I'm ready for more. And he was like, we're not there. And I was like, okay. So I put in my 2-week notice and I left on my last paycheck and went to Arizona in 2007. So quite a while ago. And that's the one thing that I've always loved about hospitality business is you can pick up and go anywhere. Like there are always need for bartenders and servers and, you know, banquets and hotels. And there's just so many opportunities within the hospitality industry. But it's definitely a love-hate relationship with me because I work all nights and weekends because that's just the nature of the business. And I feel like a lot of opportunities and relationships suffered because I never got to spend the holidays with anybody, and I never really dated anybody. I had a boyfriend once, and he's a good guy, but not my guy. But just being in that like constant like hospitality hustle is just super draining. And I again just always kept feeling like I was meant for more.
Mhm. And then there's Arizona. You arrive in Arizona, and then what happens?
I fell in love with my life. I fell in love with the sunshine and the heat. Don't get me wrong, the first summer was horrible. I was like, what did I do? But our seasons are just different. Like you learn to adapt to the desert life. Winter and fall, the coldness in Michigan is way more days than the summertime in Arizona. So, there's a good balance. And I just assumed I would just be a snowbird. I want to visit my family in the summer. Michigan summers are the best. And I will just figure out how to make life work so that I can visit my family more. And I stayed in the hospitality business because of that, because I could work really hard all winter
Mhm.
long. Like October to April are the busy months in Arizona. And I would just work, 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 work. I'd work 60 hours a week and just bank up as much cash as I could. And then I would take like 2, 3, 4 weeks off and go to Michigan and visit my family. And I did that pretty much almost every summer. And then I would come back broke, and then I'd have to start all over again. So I repeated this pattern for many, many years. Again, love hate relationship with the restaurant business. But I've learned so much. I don't regret any of it looking back. But in the time, it was
Right.
really challenging. And, I was like, well, maybe I'm not meant to be
Mhm.
in Arizona. My mom talked me into coming back closer to home, and I went to Chicago in 2015 and tried Chicago. I had some friends there, and it wasn't even the weather that was bad, but life just kicked me in the butt. Like I was making $40,000 living downtown Chicago, so I was just broke the whole time I was there, living on
Mhm.
credit cards. And you know to I tried to live the Chicago's lifestyle on those credit cards. But life didn't work out, the job didn't work out, and then I was unemployed, and it was February again in Chicago. And I was like, I'm going to go back to Arizona and, just figure it out. I'm in my lease until June, but I'm not working right now. So I'll go work for my friend. She's a bookkeeper. It's tax season. I'll just go back to Arizona for a little bit. And I was in Arizona for a week,
Mhm.
and I see all my friends, and everyone's like, you have to come back, blah, we miss you. And a few days later, I got a call from my maintenance guy in Chicago, and he's like, hey, I think you said you were going on vacation. There was a fire in the building last night. You might want to have an insurance adjuster come over. And I was like, oh my gosh. I sent my girlfriends over there that lived in the city. I was like, please go check on this. What had happened was it was 2 stories above me. So water just came down through my unit. The floors the floors were damp,
Oh.
and the ceiling fell in multiple places. I was in the ground level studio apartment. And I told my insurance company, I'm like, look, you can put me up for who knows how long in Chicago, or if you can pay for the moving truck. And the insurance company is like, how much? I'm like,
Uh-huh.
$1,500. They're like, done. So I packed up. They basically were like, just
Wow.
if you have any losses, just take pictures. It's a studio. And I was like, sweet, I'm getting rid of all this stuff. And then they were like, well, never mind, pack it all in the truck and we'll inspect it when you get to Arizona. And I was like, okay. So I didn't have a lot of losses, but I had enough that, towels and rugs and things that got wet and damaged and gross that I didn't want to bring back. So um,
Mhm.
the universe brought me back to Arizona. And I was like, okay, I tried it. I tried to go back closer to home. I am obviously meant to be here. And that's when I decided to get my real estate license because I was like, I am never leaving again. And I'm helping everybody move to Arizona.
Mhm.
um, but again, start repeating the patterns. I got a serving job right away. I was like, I'll just be a career server. Who cares? I'll work this real estate business. And I started to see myself repeating patterns and I started to see the unhappiness come back. And even though I had got back to Arizona and seen back around my friends, I wasn't happy in life. And I was like, okay, there
Mm,
still has to be more. Like, it can't just be, this can't be it.
right.
This can't be it. I'm a college graduate. I'm broke all the time. I'm sick of it. So, a friend had mentioned to me, you know, you're talking very negative, you don't seem very happy. I'm like, I'm not, I don't like life. I'm not good here. And they were like, you need to go to Landmark. And I don't know if you're familiar with
Mhm.
Landmark or Sci or like any of the personal development programs. I was looking into therapy. I was like, I
Right.
don't, I
Yes. Mhm.
I need either a therapist, but then I found Landmark and it was very affordable for a weekend of promised transformation. And you know what? It was one of the best
Mhm.
investments I ever made in myself was to do Landmark. And that's when life started to shift.
That's awesome.
I uh, I did the whole Landmark program. I started a new business. I went self-employed in 2017 and I was going to start this concierge business for Airbnb guests because Airbnb was starting to blow up, in 2017. And I was like, okay, I have this real estate license and I have a
Mhm.
hospitality background. I will build this business where I get to utilize both. I'll meet the people, make them fall in love with Arizona, and then they'll want to move here and buy the house from me. And that was the big plan in 2019. And in 2020, we all know what
Mhm.
happened. you know, um, the concierge business, the event business, the hospitality business, everything stopped. And I had to figure out
Right.
what I was going to do. I got to start over again. And I have this real estate license. And guess what? The real estate market is booming. But I just don't know I don't know how to do anything. So I need to take, some kind of step to be mentored in real estate. So that's what I did. I joined a real estate team, and Steve Valentine was my mentor. And he was a big investor, and I had never learned anything about investing.
Mm.
I still haven't bought my own home yet. I don't know. I thought buying and selling houses and doing open houses, doing it the traditional real estate way was the way to go. And he opened my eyes to like so many different ways to utilize my real estate license and so many possibilities, and that I could teach other people about investing, and I can do deals for myself, and start investing in my own properties. So I was super excited and I was killing it and I was doing awesome, in 21 and 22. And then guess what? The market changed again. And that's when the
Mhm.
interest rates dropped, real estate stopped moving. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to go back to Michigan and take my break. I've been hustling really hard the last couple of years, and I'm going to go spend some time with my family. And my parents were like, hey, dad's got to have this surgery. Do you want to be here for it? I was like, oh, I can be. There's nothing going on here. And they're like, no, we'll just do it after you leave. So I went back to Michigan for 3 weeks and spent it with my family. And it was awesome. It was awesome. And I took a road trip back to Arizona,
Mhm.
just took my time. I got back, and a few days later, my dad had his surgery, and he made it through surgery. And later that night, had a heart attack and passed. And again,
Mhm.
life, life is never. what you expect it to be. And I feel like the universe just like kept stopping things
Mhm.
for me. And looking back now, it's like,
Mhm.
I don't, I just, I'm gonna have to pause for just a second because I'm like, I don't know where to go from here.
Yeah, no. Yeah, take a pause. This is where the story, obviously growing up, it's very clear that, you definitely had a heart of determination, certainly experienced resilience, just kept moving forward. Um, Question at the beginning,
Mhm.
before you had done some self development, did you feel like life was happening for you or to you?
It was that,
I mean, is that what brought you to your friend basically saying you seem unhappy? Was there kind of this frustration? I mean, it sounds like there might have been that frustration of like, gosh, what is going on?
yeah. I definitely had a victim mindset for sure. I would take jobs
Mm,
and never got paid my worth. And it was somebody else's fault always.
right.
But I chose the jobs, like learning that
Mm,
in Landmark. I chose all those jobs and I chose to be
right.
undervalued. Uh, I took a $30,000 sales job because I could make some commissions. But the way the commission structure added up, like I was
Right.
never going to get over $40,000. And that was prior to going to
Mhm,
Chicago. After Chicago,
right.
I took another job, another $40,000 job because I just kept thinking that was all I was worth. And then I got the real estate license. I did property management
Mhm,
right when I got my real estate license because I wanted the paycheck. It was too hard to
mhm.
like just live straight commission. And the property management company I worked for was paying me like
Yeah.
$35,000. And they're like, well, we'll make you a manager one day. And I was like, well, I'm a
Mhm,
licensed agent. Like, teach me how to be a manager
mm,
because the managers make commission as well, and they're all making six figures. And they're like, well, we're just too busy. We don't
mhm,
have the time or the people to train you to make you a property manager. So after, almost a year of
mhm,
sucking it up and trying to learn and teaching myself and asking for help, I wasn't getting anywhere again. So,
mhm.
I was definitely a victim. And you know, I was
Right.
I was like, I don't want to be the victim in my life anymore. And that's I left
Yeah,
the property management job after I had done Landmark because Landmark really teaches you about that victim mindset
right.
and the way you talk to yourself and the things that we allow to
Yeah.
happen in our life.
Mhm. And even what you had mentioned as you were, saying that you were in that job, it was a matter of feeling like that was all I was worth at the time. So, like, I just, we settle. It's so easy to settle for those
Mhm.
things. And so, first of all, I commend you for, I'm so grateful that you had a friend, first of all, that was brave enough to tell you, like, hey, you just, you're sounding a little off, like that you don't sound like you're happy. And I feel like, it does take, some guts and a true friendship to come forward to a friend to be able to say that,
Mhm.
because oftentimes we don't want to rock the boat, and we kind of make excuses like, well, we just want her to get through what she has to get through. And so for her to come forward, then that triggered you to kind of dive in with yourself and go and say yes to yourself. I think that is such a huge bold move that you made, is you said yes to yourself for wanting to level up, because at that point you knew, like, I don't want to live like this anymore. We get to a point where we reach, I don't want to do this anymore. It's more exhausting to try to keep afloat than it is to try to fix things or to try to change our mindset. So I love that you did that. I commend you for that, for sure. And all the while, so we, fast forward, things are going a little bit better. You go back, spend this lovely time with your family. Your dad suddenly passes. And then I know your story actually
Mhm.
continues from that point. And this is all within a shorter period of time, that
Mhm.
then you end up losing mom. So tell us a little bit
Mhm.
about, as much as you feel comfortable, about what happens in that time frame.
Yeah. It's still kind of fresh. Yeah,
Yeah.
dad passed July of
Yeah.
22. My mother had been diagnosed
Yep.
with fatty liver many, many years prior. And, we were going to doctors
Mhm.
with her, like, come on, mom, get healthy. You need to change your diet. The liver can be repaired, like all the things. But after my dad passed, she just
Mhm.
she just kind of gave up and went downhill. And she passed in July of 23.
Mhm.
And it was just crazy because they were just both
Yeah.
still too young. Um, right before my dad had passed, we'd had the
Mhm.
conversation, "Hey, you guys are getting older. Do we know what to do if something happens to you guys?" My dad was 69, my mom was 67. And it's just
Mhm.
crazy how life happened that way. And like my business didn't really bounce back after my
Yeah.
dad. The market didn't bounce back. So I went back to the hospitality business and I was like, okay, I'm going to rebuild something else because I don't want my life to be determined by a real estate market. And I had friends that, while I was home cleaning out my childhood home after my mom passed, I'm stressed out going, I need to get back to work. I
Mhm.
need to go back. I need to go back. But thankfully, I talked to friends and they're like, Nicole, we're not doing anything here. Like we're hustling and nobody's selling houses. So I'm like, okay, I can just be
Uh-huh.
here and I can heal. And, with them passing, I did get a little bit of money. It wasn't life change. I mean, it was life changing. Yes. It, paid off all my debts that I had had for years. And I got an opportunity to, go a little slow and heal and do a lot of work around my grief rather than
Mhm.
rush back to work and feel like overly
Mhm.
stressed about cash flow. Um, so I am very grateful for
Yeah.
that time. Um, and that's when I like
Yeah.
reinvested in myself when I came back after cleaning out my childhood home. I ended up buying my brother out and I kept the house. And I was like, you know what? This will be my first investment property. It's what I've always
Mhm.
wanted, an investment property. And I invested in coaching when I got back. So I was like, I need to reboot. So I have some
Yeah.
ideas that I've always, been toying around with since I started on my personal development journey. Like I haven't even shared all the things that I did in the background while trying to get these businesses going. Like
Right.
I had therapists and hypnotherapists and coaches and um, workshops and retreats and many, many, many
Right.
many things I was doing in the background to change my mindset, to change my life. And that's what I really
Mhm.
became passionate about because had I not done that work, I don't think I would have been able to survive the passing of both my parents within a year's time and going through all my childhood stuff. Like it's not even just their like I had to pick
Yeah.
what parts of my parents I wanted to keep forever. And all my childhood stuff was there
Yeah.
too. So I had to go through all my childhood
Mm.
stuff. And that's when I started doing a lot of inner child work. I didn't realize all that stuff was still stuck in there. And I know that's kind of a
Yeah.
hot topic for everybody right now is inner child work. And whew, cleaning out your childhood home will do it for you.
Well, yeah, right? Well, what's so fascinating about this is I was just literally writing a, blog about this, that my mom and I actually just recorded a podcast about this as well with time. And my mom and I talk about this a lot because being in midlife at 51 years old at the time right now, I tell her I am not just doing the self work, for feeling better in the moment. I mean, yes, that's a huge component. But selfishly, I am also doing a lot of self work because I know that, first of all, life is going to throw us doozies, like massive doozies. Like that is just going to be part of life.
Mhm.
And I also know, between my husband and I, we have a ton of family that are still here with us, but that are between the ages of 75 and 95 years old. And when you hit 51 and you look at this time, you see it from such a different lens. You go, holy cow. As my mom was talking to me the other day, she was literally saying, I want to be healthy so I can spend more summers with my grandkids. And you start to realize at age 70 something that those summers are becoming less and less. So, when you really put it in that perspective, and not that I want to sit and dwell on that, but I also want to make sure that I am in a space, because no matter what, it's going to be hard. And I know you've gone through this firsthand. And like you just said, it was the work that you had done, thinking that you were just doing it because you were like, I want to get out of this lifestyle. I want to stop these patterns.
Mhm,
But now you can look hindsight and go, that's what helped to prepare me to get through some of the hardest moments of my entire life. And it's still fresh. Like you said, you're
mhm,
still having to tap into these tools that you learned and strategies and way to take care of yourself, because life isn't just, we're not served, everything on a silver platter for
mhm,
sure. And that's one of the things that I appreciate about your story. And that's about the time I had met you, when we were at a retreat and we were getting, some coaching. This was all still very fresh. And this is where I was so inspired by you, because I heard your story a year ago and I was just in my own mind going, oh my gosh, I don't know how she has been able to do this. And I felt the heavy for
mhm.
sure. But what I loved is that you had announced at that retreat something that you decided to do, and you were going to be doing it. And that is what I would love for you to tell us a little bit about, that you made a decision, and you can talk around that, and then just tell us what bold transformative decision you made.
Well, I'm gonna back up just a tiny bit just so I can,
Yeah.
kind of explain that big, bold move. Um, we talked about
Yeah.
my victim mindset. I blamed my parents for a lot of things.
Yeah.
Like, I stayed in jobs because my parents said
Mhm.
I should stick it out. You should get that paycheck. You can't be your own boss. You need the insurance, you need the things. And I stayed in all these jobs. I took all these jobs because I felt like they were something my parents wanted. And I had to do a lot of therapy around that back in like 2017 as well, like after I did the
Mhm.
landmark stuff. Because I had to accept, like, hey, I don't want to work for people. I want to go make my own money. But I have my parents chirping in my ear and
Right.
all these conditions and limiting beliefs that were instilled in me as child that kept coming up for me, and I kept running into these walls. And, I had to work through that. And I had to work through forgiving my parents for not knowing any different. And my mom, I sent my my mom came out here in
Mhm.
2021. She was not doing well at home. My
Mhm.
brother and my dad were really frustrated with her. She had just zero motivation. We wanted her to be healthy. We wanted her to stick around. We wanted her to be a part of our life. And I was like, you know what? She can come to daughter boot camp and we'll do some work. And I did. I made her do work. She could hardly walk from my car to my apartment.
Aw.
And I'm like, Mom, like, this is ridiculous. Like, you're 60. She was 65. I was like, this is crazy. So, like, I made her go on appointments with me. I made her go to bed on time. I made her like turn off the TV at night. Um, and she lost 25 pounds
Mhm.
and she got a pep back in her step. Like, she made me go to the zoo and
Wow.
the butterfly garden and just made me do all these activities I hadn't done since I was a kid. And um I started to see my mom again. And
Wow.
we did some therapy with my life coach. And, things that she thought affected me in my life I didn't remember. So, like, we learned to, like, kind of accept each other, like, as we are, because we don't know what each other's going through.
Mhm.
And so, thankfully, I had that time with my mom. I had
Right.
6 weeks with her in Arizona. Um, that I was able to heal. And, Mel Robbins' book is real big right now. And she talked about let them. And I had that I said
Mhm.
those exact words right before my parents passed. Before I went back to Michigan. I'm like, you know what? Mom just spent 2021 fall with me. It's summer of 22. Like, I know I can't change them, and I'm just going to let them be who they are. They're going to go when they're going to go. They're going to do what they're going to do. And I have no control over that. And
Mhm.
so that was a big savior for me to be able to say, you know what, I'm going to let them, and I'm just going to be my person, and I'm going to do my thing. And I'm doing the work on myself because that's all I can do. So fast forward
Mhm.
to, when I saw you, it was April of 24.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yep.
Um,
Yep.
April of 24. I'm sitting in my women's circle the week before I see you, and we're writing our visions. And, I had just gone through, both parents, the house is sitting empty in Michigan. I'm stressed out.
Mhm.
And I'm like, all I see is freaking cobblestone streets, me drinking wine and coffee. And that's all I want to do. I just want to go to Italy. And the girls in my circle were like, well, why don't you just plan it? You've got, do you have money? And I was like, well, yeah, I have a little money. Um, but I mean, I can't just like stop life. Like,
Mhm.
I have to keep going. I've got to build this business, and I've got this business coach, and I got all these things going on. Like, I have to restart my life. And they were like, just book the trip. By next month, we challenge you to book the trip. And then I went and saw my friend Katie Kylie, and she's
Mhm.
my spiritual mentor. And you were at her house, and that I think we met briefly at that um, Business and
Oh,
Bubbly.
yeah.
We met at Business and
That's
Bubbly at
right.
Katie's
That's
house for a
right.
second. So that's funny how we came back together. But Katie's my spiritual person that
Yeah.
I see, and she had messages from my parents, and they said, take the trip,
Mm.
consider it a gift from them. Just don't think that I'm going to move there, and don't spend all my money.
Oh.
And when I get back, they know I don't want to hear this, but they want me to sell the house because it's attached to old
Mhm.
energy. They'll find a new family to love it. It's stressing me out, and I'm not leaving Arizona, and my money's better invested in Arizona. So I really took that to heart. I felt immediate
Wow.
relief when she told me that, and it felt like the right thing to do. So I booked a trip to Italy
Mhm.
the next, like that, a few days later. And I told, I'm like, I'm going to go on this retreat,
Yeah.
our infinity retreat. And then I'm taking a pause, and I'm going to Italy. So
Yep.
it started off as 2 weeks. My first restaurant I worked at was the Olive Garden. So
Uh-huh.
I'm like, I have to go to Italy. I know it's not whatever, you
Mhm.
guys, and you're Italian and Olive Garden, but it's where I learned to appreciate wine and pasta. And I wanted to go to the source. And I worked at a Spanish tapas
Yep.
restaurant in Chicago. So I really knew about Spanish food and wine. And so I'm like, oh, I'm going to do Italy and Spain. So it started off as a 2 week trip.
Mhm.
And then everyone's like, well, Portugal's the place to go. Like, why aren't you going to Portugal? You're already going to be in Spain. And I was like, well, I mean, I guess I can. I mean, I'm not really doing anything. I'm bartending. Like, I'm bartending a couple days a week. Like, it's not going to kill me to go for
Right.
4 weeks. So I switched it up, and I'm like, okay, Italy, Spain, Portugal. 4 weeks. I'll come back right before my birthday, and, I'll celebrate 45, like this, going back into it with a bang. And as the trip got closer, I was
Mhm.
like, why do I want to be in Arizona on my birthday? Like, my birthday is June 29th, and it's like usually 4th of July weekend. So Arizona is always
Mhm.
hot, and nobody's around because it's 4th of July weekend. People get out of town. I'm like,
Right.
why am I coming back? Like, for my birthday? Like, that's just lame. Um,
Mhm.
I'm like, well, where's Taylor Swift at? And I looked her up, and she was in Dublin on my birthday. And so when I lived in Michigan, I've worked at Irish pubs forever. In Michigan, I worked at an Irish pub for 6 years. In Arizona, I worked at an Irish pub for 6 years. So like, Irish pubs are my thing. And I was like, well, hands down, I'm going to freaking
Mhm.
Dublin. And
There you
then I
go.
couldn't figure out how to buy tickets online. And I was like, okay, well, let me look at a map. So I looked at a map, and I was like, okay, well, there's like Amsterdam, London, like it's all kind of right there. Like, and our next show was in Amsterdam. And I was like, Amsterdam's not high on my list because those aren't my priority type of things. But I was
Right.
like, whatever, I'll go to Amsterdam. Everybody talks about Amsterdam. I'll go to Amsterdam. And then I figured out how to change and get a direct flight back out of London. So I was like, all right, adding 2 more weeks, I'm going to be in Dublin and Amsterdam. There's 6 Taylor Swift shows. I'm going to figure out how to go to one of them. And so 6 week trip
Mhm.
to Italy, and I had, or to 6 countries. And I had a couple of friends and family that were like, well, maybe I could meet you for some of it. And as I started planning the trip, I was like, I don't want to be like running around for someone else. Like, this is my trip. I've never been overseas and I don't want to be on somebody else's schedule and I don't want people telling me what to do. So I decided just to go by myself. And I'm like, you know what? I'm going
Mhm.
to do my own little eat, pray, love. And, I deserve this after the last
Yep,
couple years. And actually, the last 20
definitely.
years, 30 years. It's something I've always wanted to
Yeah,
do. So I was like, it's time.
yeah,
I'm gonna go live it up and spend 6 weeks abroad and figure it out. Um, yeah,
yeah.
it was
That is amazing.
yeah.
And I was so intrigued by this because I have heard that I have never taken a solo trip like that before, but I've heard that solo travel can be a very introspective experience and I would just love to know, what were some of the most impactful lessons or maybe even, some moments you had during your time abroad that just really were those aha
Mhm.
moments.
Yeah, I was really nervous about communication. So I did pick cities that were, very tourist friendly. I did it, and I had a trip planner that helped me,
Mhm,
because I was like, here's kind of what I want to do. Can you make some
mhm,
suggestions? And he like booked all my hotels and trains, and I booked all my flights. And then he gave me a whole PDF of like 50 pages of like things to do in each city I picked. So I picked Rome, Florence, Cinque Terre, and Venice. And then I did
mhm,
Barcelona, Ibiza, Sevilla, Lagos, and Lisbon. And then I added the Dublin, Amsterdam, and London right at the end. Um, it definitely was
mhm.
eat, pray, love. I got to Italy and I could care less about anything going on. I just wanted to eat and watch life and drink like coffee and wine and it was
Love it.
amazing. Like I felt so good. Like I never had a hangover. I mean, and I drank my Aperol spritz everywhere. But what I learned about Italy though, being solo, because I'm used to working in bars and things, and I was like, I'll just go belly up to a bar and make a friend. And you can't do that there because everything's kind of cafe
Mhm,
style. So like I had to go
mhm,
sit at a table by myself, and I was like, well, you
mm.
know, and sometimes I talk to people as when it seemed opportune. Um, there's a lot of families traveling. There's a lot of couples traveling. They're probably on their honeymoon. Like I'm not gonna just interrupt everybody and talk to everybody, but sometimes I'd talk to the people sitting at the table next to me. And I mean, it's a small world. Like I ran
Mhm.
into people that have a second home in Scottsdale. I ran into somebody from my hometown in Michigan. I didn't know her, but she knew
Oh,
my
wow.
cousin, like in Dublin. Just in Dublin, ran into somebody from Berrien Springs, Michigan. Um, so Italy, I just like ate my way through. But by the time I got to Spain, I was like, okay, all right, if I'm gonna have some love, I'm gonna have to like let the walls down because everybody's just chirping in my ear, like, watch your purse, don't. There's pickpockets, like. So I just felt like I was probably on
Mm,
guard a lot in Italy. Um, I was enjoying it, but um, I was like, when I get to Spain, like, I want people to talk to me, so I gotta let the little bubble I've built around myself down. Um, and it
mhm.
didn't really change. I still had fun. I my dream was to go to Ibiza and dance all night, and I did that. And I nobody talked to me. I just danced all night, and I was there till 5:30 in the morning. It was awesome. Yeah. And then it started to get toward the end of my trip. I hit Portugal and so crazy story. I about the Taylor Swift tickets. I'm gonna back up. So the day that I left Phoenix, I go to the airport. I took a carry-on only.
Mhm.
And I wheel it up to the bar. I sit at the bar, sit next to this woman, and I'm just like, oh my God, I'm going overseas for the first time. I've got a carry on. I'm going for 6 weeks. I just added the last 2 weeks to try to see Taylor Swift and blah, 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 blah. And I just like ran my mouth to this woman. And finally, she like stops me a little bit later and she goes, okay, I've got to tell you something. She goes, so I'm the head roadie for Justin Timberlake, and my mentee is on Taylor Swift's tour
Oh,
and you're going to go to a show. You're going to have to pay for it, but he owes me. You're going to a show. And she gave me his contact information. So the day that I got to Italy, I emailed this gentleman and I was like, you know, you have to give them your name and the preferred dates that you want to go and, how many tickets you want. And I was like, well, I asked for two just because I'm like, maybe I'll meet somebody along the way to take, but
Mhm.
I don't want to have four tickets. I don't even know how much they're going to cost. I don't want to be responsible. So I'll get two. And then I was like, well, I'll be in Dublin or London,
Right.
Amsterdam. So I don't even care. Like whatever's best. And then they're like, basically submit and wait. And so by the time I got to Portugal, like I'm getting a little tired because I'm just like on the move. Like I'm in a new city every 3 days. Day one, I'm always awesome. Day two, I'm like just trying to see the last few things that I wanted to see because day three was usually a travel day. And day three, I'm just like exhausted. So I think there
Mhm.
was like one city I was in for 4 days and I was just like, why am I here? I'm ready. I'm ready. But then like I get on a plane or a train, I get to a new city and I'm like, yay. Um, but I got to Portugal and I'm like, I have 2 more weeks of this. Like, I don't even know. I don't know if I can do this. And that's when I
Right.
finally got the email in Lisbon, my last city before I went up to Dublin, where I was about ready to throw it in. And I got the email that says, you've secured 2 tickets to Taylor Swift on the 4th of July in Amsterdam. And I was, okay, now I can continue with my trip.
Oh, wow.
So now I can just go enjoy Dublin and not have to worry about anything. And that was pretty awesome. So it's like kind of a series of emails. So then I have to wait a few days for the link to purchase the tickets. So now I'm in Dublin and I get the link to purchase the
Mhm.
tickets and it says €450. And I was like, well, that's not bad. I'm overseas once in a lifetime. Who cares? And then I looked closer and
Mhm.
that was for 2 tickets. So they were basically like 225 a piece. And I was like,
Ah.
this is awesome. Um, so, and I had a little boyfriend in Dublin too that kept me company. So that finally got to the love part of my journey and had some fun in Dublin. Um, Amsterdam was fun. So another crazy story. So I get to Amsterdam and a woman I had met in Lisbon, her and I became friends. We were on a food tour together and she was in her 50s from Canada, going through a divorce. So like we just hit it off and we
Mhm.
had exchanged numbers. And she texted me and she's like, I can't believe I have to go back to Canada. She was on another group tour. Our paths just happened to cross. And she's like, I can't believe I'm going back. I'm sitting in the Amsterdam airport and I'm just really sad. And I was like, well, I'm in the Dublin airport on my way to Amsterdam and I have an extra Taylor Swift ticket. So you should just stay there and wait for me. And she was 15 minutes from boarding and she changed her flight to stay with me. And we hung out in Amsterdam. She shared the hotel with me. We had a blast. And then I was kind of like, man, almost wish I would have had a friend because there were days when I was traveling where I was just like not motivated. And I'm like, I wish I had somebody to make me go do something because I really just want to go curl up and
Mhm.
I don't want to be around people anymore. I don't want to spend more money. I don't know what I want. Like just I had definitely the emotional roller coaster while I was over there.
Mhm.
Um but everything happens for a reason and I was meant to meet my friend at the last one. And then London was awesome. I loved London. But it
Mhm.
kind of started hitting me like going, oh my gosh, like I have to go back to life after this. Like what does it look like on returning from a 6-week dream trip to Europe? And I'm still trying to figure that one out because I look at my pictures now and I'm just like,
Yeah.
God, I can't believe I did that. Like that's just so cool. And
Yeah.
when am I going to do it again? And I don't know that I would not go 6 weeks again. I would go two.
Right.
I would go like
Right.
two. Two would be awesome, like perfect.
Yeah.
Because your energy stays high. That's for two.
Yeah.
But after that, then you're kind of like digging. Like, okay,
Yeah.
I've already seen a beach. I've already gone to a nightclub. I've already eaten all the food. Like it's it was great, but I would have been
Right.
totally fulfilled with 2 weeks. So
Yeah. Well, and going, back to making this decision and even just while you were there, fear is something that holds so many of us back. And I hear you telling this story and I just go, oh my gosh, like, I feel like I'm brave in a lot of ways. And I know at the beginning you said, oh, brave. It feels, weird to hear that because maybe you didn't always feel brave going through your journey. But just through this traveling, I feel like there were moments, I mean, dancing in Ibiza by yourself and doing that all night long and not talking to anyone, but just determined that you're like, you know what, I made the decision that I was going to do this and I was going to have fun doing this. I mean, those are the things that I think inspire other people because they can't necessarily imagine themselves in that same situation of just going for it,
Mhm.
right? So what advice would you give to women who maybe just feel so paralyzed by fear, but yet they have this deep desire to make a big change in their lives or to do something bold like this? I mean, what advice would you give to women to do that and step out of their comfort zone?
So I have a gratitude practice that I started years ago where I write things I'm grateful for every day and I write affirmations.
Mm,
When I first
mhm,
started doing them many years ago, I didn't believe it. In my heart, I would write, I am confident. Okay, whatever. You know, I, but
mhm.
it's a practice. It's something, that I practice over and over and over and
Yeah.
over again. And I've learned like I have to be grateful for all the moments. And every time like I would start to trip out about regrets or fear or things like that, I'm like, but look at what I'm doing. Like, look at this. And I can't,
Mhm,
like, look at this food. I am sitting right here. Like, I don't, who cares? Like, there's nothing to be scared of right now. But I have amazing
mhm.
Italian food right in front of me in Italian wine. And I just like savored the moment. And would just like try to see
Yeah.
the gratitude and try to stay really present and try to stay out of my head because I'd start future tripping going,
Mm,
I'm going to get bored. What happens in the next city? What am I going to do? Like your head, you have to learn to control your thoughts. And that's a lot of the practice
mm.
that I've done for many
So
years.
good.
Going back, I did hypnotherapy back in 2020, 2021 because I was doing all this
Mhm,
work, but I still felt like it wasn't enough. I wasn't enough. And I hired this hypnotherapist and I'm like, did 20 things today to move my business forward, but I can't stop thinking about the one email I didn't send. And I would sit and regret all night over one stupid thing. And so I'm like,
mhm,
you need to help me rewire these neural pathways because I know that I'm doing good. And I know that I'm grateful for all the things that have already happened, but I don't know how to get my mind to believe me and trick me or whatever. Um, but it's just all these little tools I've learned along the way and why I want to do
mhm,
personal development moving forward because you don't know what you don't know, and that's kind of what Landmark taught. And so when I
mhm.
felt like I plateaued after Landmark, I got the life coach and she started helping me see life through a different lens. And then when I couldn't get my brain to change the
Mhm.
things that I knew needed to change, that's when I found the hypnotherapy. Then I found out like my human design and I found out my soul purpose and all these different things that, made me
Yeah.
really understand who I was, that each little tool and each little thing has just built upon each other and it's brought me to that point. Like if you would have asked me, I mean, I never booked the trip before. I kept saying, no, I can't do it. No, I can't
Right.
do it. Oh, I will never have the money. I'll never do that. Blah, blah, blah. And that goes back to listening to how you talk to yourself and what words you put out into the universe. So that's where I'm really passionate about and like helping people recognize the patterns and the self oh I can't the words blah 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 how we self-sabotage when we can do
Yeah.
things. There's so many
Yeah.
things that we can do and we let the other thoughts win. And kind of I learned the ego tricks back in 2020. I did a workshop about ego tricks and I was like, well, isn't ego that thing that
Mhm.
if you are boastful about yourself, isn't that the ego? And I'm like, no, ego is like the little devil on your shoulder or, the thing that talks you down. And,
Right.
she had these little ego tricks. If you say I should or I can't or all these things, they're not true. Like, yes, you can do it. You choose not to. It's a different word.
Mhm.
So when I started recognizing these little tricks that the ego was playing on me and I catch myself saying, "Oh, I should do that." Well, Yes, I can. It's not a should. It's a yes or a no. It's not a can't. It's a yes or a no. Like,
Right.
what do you choose? And I had to learn to like choose
Mhm.
and trust myself and not let the ego spin me out of control. So that's a lot of the work that I do and that I
Yeah.
continue to do to this day, because the work's never ending. And we're constantly healing, we're constantly growing. I'm reading a
Abs
really great book right now, and she was talking about how we're always healing and getting to that next version of ourselves. And that's just what I think every experience is just kind of built on. You have to look backwards and like, if this didn't happen, if I wouldn't have taken this restaurant job, I wouldn't have met these people. And if I didn't meet these people, I wouldn't have gone to Arizona. And if I wouldn't have gone to Arizona, I never would have, you know, you look back and it's like, oh, this was all meant to
Yeah.
happen exactly how it was. So
Yeah. No,
I know
it's so
I'm starting
true,
to like
and I
go
feel
off
like
with like, there's just so many things in my head.
right, no, and well, and it's so great because I do believe that mindset and personal development, like, it's so important. And again, no matter what age you're at, it's not something that you just learn at the beginning of life or learn as a teenager or learn in your 20s and then boom, it's just there forever. It is a practice, just like what you said. It's a practice that we have to continually be proactive in that space because we are going to slip. I mean, that's just human nature. Or we are going to be faced with something that we've never faced before. And we have to figure out how to navigate life. And I know that we could, oh my gosh, I know. It's like you start to get me going because obviously as a life coach myself and more like and I like to say I love to empower women and to mentor them into exactly the space that you're talking about. And this is why I loved your story because I really feel like there is such transformation in that. And how we're living our life right now doesn't have to be how you are living it. If you are feeling stuck, if you are feeling like, I don't want to do this, or I keep falling into the same patterns, there are ways to help yourself. Because, how many times do we sit in our own lives and look at other people thinking, gosh, I wish I was like them. I wish I had it together like them. I wish that isn't just natural. I definitely will say most of the time that is not a natural situation. That is because they're doing the work somewhere. And I'd
Mhm.
love to ask you this as we kind of wrap up all of this is now that you have gone through this experience and, you still have a lot of life to live. What does your life look like now and what are you what are you excited about? What has changed for you?
Oh man. This is a good one. So this year I've decided that I'm getting back into my real estate career, but it's different this time. Like this, it's going to be the way that I want to do it. It's not, I need to kill it. I need to sell 10
Mhm,
houses. I need to do all of the things. I want to work with people that I
mhm,
want to work with. I want to do a deal a month, which is plenty to live on with the way our market is, especially in Arizona.
mhm,
As long as I'm confident and get the commissions that I'm asking for. And so that's the first piece of it. And
mhm.
I'm like, as long as if I don't have to kill it in real estate, then I
Yeah.
have time to work on the personal development piece, which I'm really passionate about. I don't feel a trip just yet.
Mhm.
Though part of me is going, but it's so fun. But it's a distraction. You know, last year I needed to heal. Last year it was necessary. This year I want it to be more of a reward.
Mhm.
And I want to work for it. I'm gonna have to work for it because the money runs out. Um, uh, but I, I I did so much last year. I didn't even talk about my road trip. I went and saw everything that I ever wanted to see. I went to Seattle and Oregon and sold the house and like I did so many other things. So I'm
Wow.
good for a while. So now what I'm trying to
Mm,
do is just get really better at my habits, my daily habits, keeping control of those thoughts.
mm,
I know the things that it takes to be successful in real estate. And now I just have to choose my little pillars and create habits out of them. And that's where I struggle because I have been kind of all over the place. I haven't committed to a good daily routine because I haven't had to work for anybody in the last 2 or 3 years, or really since COVID. I
Mhm.
feel like my work ethic has changed. Like I started to love my life more and I want to work less. So I have to develop those habits that allow me to work
Mhm.
less and see more results. So I'm really focused on, expanding and up leveling my life so that I know how to do those 4-hour work days. So I get to live more and work less. So that's my big goal this year.
Yeah.
And I know if I can master those daily habits, I can really create anything I want in whatever
Mhm.
industry I want.
I love that. I love that. And I will be so curious. We'll have to have you on in like a year from now
Oh,
and then
man.
revisit, see what has, transpired because it really is. I just feel like this really is just another beginning for you. And it really is a space where I have a feeling that there are probably lots of things that are going to continue to unfold and I see you on social media, and it definitely is, I can just even feel the shift
Mhm.
of you making again that decision that you're like, okay, I'm going to go for it. I'm going to do it differently this time. And again, it's just another step of leveling up and creating the life that you love. And, now you've gotten the taste of living this life of more, freedom and joy. And then now you get to go, okay, I know I have to work for those things because they don't come for free. And
Mhm.
so now it's a matter of what can I do here to level up, to find and create those systems to bring it all together so you can live
Right.
within your values. So I love that so much for you. Your journey is really a powerful reminder that even in those hard moments, we do have the ability to rewrite our story and step into that courage and create the life that we love. And that's one of my taglines because I truly do believe that. So I just want to thank you again so much for being open to share it with us. I know women have been inspired. Can you just tell us, it'll be in the show notes as well, but
Mhm.
can you just tell us where's a great place to follow you, to find you, and continue on this journey with you?
Thanks. Yeah. I am on Instagram and Facebook. Nicole Porter AZ is where you can find me. Nicole Porter AZ is kind of life in Arizona. If you're thinking about moving here, I love it and I can give you a million reasons why. And that's what that Instagram page is for. But I'm also working on Nicole
Yeah.
Chases D. And Nicole Chases D is the girl that, single girl that chases dreams and gets and does everything that she wants to do. So Nicole Chases D is my other handle. And I have a YouTube channel and Instagram for that as well. So you can find me all over the place.
Love that. Love it. Love it. Love it. Well, ladies, if this episode resonated with you, I'd love to hear your biggest takeaway. You can definitely screenshot the episode, share it on social media, tag us. And if you haven't yet, be sure to subscribe so you never miss an episode that fuels your growth and inspires your glow up. Until next time, keep rising, keep shining, and know that the best life is waiting right here for you today. Thanks, you guys. And thank you so much, Nicole. We'll talk to you soon.
Thank you, Noelle. It was amazing. Thank you.
Thanks for joining me here today. Your presence means the world to me. If you enjoyed what you heard, please consider leaving a rating and review, and don't forget to follow or subscribe so you never miss an episode. Head to the show notes and let's connect. Rise to Shine Co. is ready to support you in coaching, collaboration, life tips, or even a coffee chat. Until next time, keep shining, my friends.